kako e nā hoa makamaka mai ka la hiki a ka la kau. Velina nui me ke aloha. Mahalo nui no keia a koko ana o kako no ka pono o ka lahui, no ka pono o ka aina a me ka pono o ka vai na hoi. Ea he olelo na ia e kalele ana I ke ko'i o ka vai a me ka aina ke kahi. Oi kau ka la e hana ai ola honua. While the sun yet shines, do all you can. I chose this because Ernie and myself and a handful of our staff the other week went on this huaka'i out into the west side to go cut fire break after the conference last week, and it was a great time to come together in fellowship, but also to take some time to see the land that is right up against the mountains over there out in the Waianae Range, up against Mount Ka'ala, to see what some of the watershed looks like. And I just want to give a warm mahalo to all the folks that cut the fire breaks and keep that land able to receive the rain that gives us our water. So thanks to the staff for setting that up. That was a great day. Also want to give a shout out to our fellow board member here who won a certain contest that day as well. Gene, good job. Make sure you support the boardroom. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chair. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was more about the fun and not.
Absolutely. There's lots of learning, right? There's lots of learning all week, and you get together to have a little bit of fun.
Certainly a testament to the committee that put the workshop together. So congratulations to Kathy and Barry for well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Of education and fun.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for all the hard work and representing the Honolulu Board of Water Supply in this year's meeting. It's an important task. Every year they try to raise the bar. I went to one of the off-island ones, and they know how to bring a good time and lots of
Olympic tournament.
Yeah. It's one guy won the tournament. Yeah. Aloha, everyone. Welcome to today's October 27, 2025 regular board meeting of the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Before beginning today's meeting, I'd like to state that our board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable water now and into the future. At this time, we'd like to share a brief recording with reminders on public participation as well as virtual meeting regulations for board members as required by law.
Materials for this meeting under HRS Section 92-7.5 are accessible at boardofwatersupply.com/board meetings. The public may attend this meeting in person at the BWS Public Service Building, located at 630 South Beretania Street. The public may also view a live stream of today's meeting on our website at boardofwatersupply.com/live. We have been accepting written or oral testimony for today's meeting. Instructions and an online submittal form are available at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. The deadline to submit advanced written testimony has passed. Testimony received by noon today have been distributed to the board members. We will continue to accept written testimony today through our online form. Oral testimony in person or remotely will be accepted during today's meeting. To facilitate as much in-person and remote testimony as reasonably possible during the time allotted, pre-registration and submittal of a written version of testimony at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony is strongly encouraged. To testify in person, please register using our online form or come to the Public Service Building at 630 South Beretania Street. We have a representative in the lobby to provide intake and further instructions. To request to testify remotely, please complete the online form at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Requesters will receive an email containing links and instructions to join the Zoom session. Testifiers will have 2 minutes to state their position. A timekeeper will alert testifiers when there is 1 minute remaining. Once the 2 minutes are up, please summarize to allow time for questions from the board. Then, make room for the next testifier. Board members attending any board meeting remotely must be visible to the public to be considered present and meet quorum guidelines. Board members participating remotely must also disclose their location and anyone present at their location during roll call. Meeting participants who are calling or video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, comment, or wish to enter or second a motion on an action item, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak. If you encounter technical issues during today's meeting, please use the Zoom chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in the message to all participants. To open the chat window, please click on the text bubble icon on the Zoom toolbar.
All right, thank you. Let's take a moment to take a roll call of the board members. When I call your name, please say aye. And if attending remotely, make the appropriate disclosures. Attending virtually, board member Brian Adaya.
Okay, this is Brian Andaya. I'm in my office alone.
Aloha, Brian, thank you. In the boardroom with me today, along with other board members, is Vice Chair Jonathan Kaneshiro,
Aye.
Board Member Lance Wilhelm,
Yep.
and Board Member Gene Albano.
Aye.
Aloha. Absent and excused today is Board Member Edwin Sniffen. I think he's on the continent with some of the governor's team. Also in the room with us today are our manager, Ernie Lau.
Aloha.
Aloha, Ernie. Manager, Secretary Kim Kwai. Aloha. Board Secretary Joy Cruz Achu.
Here.
Information Specialist Wayne Maria.
Here.
Jeff Lau is also with us in the room. Hello, Jeff. And via Zoom, Jessica Wong from City and County Corp Council. Aloha, Jessica. We have 2 items on our action agenda today. Number 1, requiring board action, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held September 27th, 2025. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
It's been moved by Gene
Second.
and seconded by Lance. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes, 5 ayes. Please note for the record. Item requiring board action number 2, introduction of resolution number 1006, 2025, providing for acquisition of lot 3164 by eminent domain, situate at Honolulu, Ewa, Hawaii, tax map key 9-1-031008. Chair recognizes Michael Matsuo. Hello, Michael.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Mike Matsuo. I'm the Land Administrator for the Land Division here at Port Horsefly. So we're here today to recommend the introduction of Resolution Number 1006, 2025, authorizing proceedings in eminent domain for the acquisition of Lot 3164. This lot is owned by Hawaii MMGD LLC, a Maryland Limited Liability Company, and is commonly referred to as Olai Street, a partially paved and unpaved road. Lot 3164 will provide access to and support the development of a seawater desalination facility that is resilient to climate change, environmentally sustainable, and consistent with the EVA development plan's directed growth policies. So we started in, as you can see here, December 4th of 2023, where we requested a construction right of entry from Hawaii MMGD. This is our standard procedure, where instead of getting a grant of easement or asking for conveyance, we'll ask for a construction right of entry so that we can actually go ahead and make any kind of improvements that we need to make. On the 18th of January, RMR Group indicated that the owner was considering conveying lot 3164 to us instead of granting the construction right of entry. And in March, they came back and they said their corporate office, the owner's corporate office, had concerns about the conveyance and they would be hiring a legal firm to represent and guide them. So throughout March, on the 13th, 20th, and 27th, we met with RMR Group and their legal counsel, who was Lung, Rose, Voss, and Wagner. And we explained that BWS only had the rights to use Olai Street to access the desalination facility via what is known as easement 1374, which is over lot 3164. But we did not have any rights to widen or pave the existing road. They agreed that the desalination facility is a beneficial project, but expressed concerns regarding the scope of the improvements, the impact to the existing Campbell Industrial Park infrastructure and current tenants, as well as access to Olai Street by Park Petroleum. Park Petroleum has a refinery that's adjacent to lot 3164. It's the old Tesoro refinery. And so they need access because they have a propane loading dock on part of the road, and their customers need to be able to access it. See, so they were requesting in them, the owner requested indemnification for them and their tenants. And they also asked to be reimbursed for expenses related to the conveyance. We did meet again on the 20th to provide them more information to address their concerns regarding the impacts from the desalination facility. Basically, we told them the Board of Water Supply is responsible for any kind of performance issues from the desalination plant, and that will be held liable for those. However, they were still a little leery about it, and
Mike, what date is that you're referring
the
to?
20th.
20th of,
March. And then on March 27th, we met again and we informed them that we would be open to reimbursing their legal expenses, but we need a cost estimate and scope of services because we wanted to be sure that whatever expenses we were paying for was related solely to the conveyance and not any other guidance that the attorneys were providing to the owner. They continue to express concern over the impacts the desal facility would have on their tenants and other users. And again, required that we indemnify and assure them for liabilities arising from both the construction and operation of the desalination facility, even after they had conveyed lot 3164 to us. On the 10th of May, the attorney sent us a draft letter agreement identifying the terms and conditions for the conveyance of lot 3164. It included the cost estimate of $25,000 to $35,000 for their legal expenses. That would be for attorney's fees, survey and engineering fees, conveyance fees, etc., in connection with the negotiation, documentation, and conveyance of lot 3164. On the 24th of June, we reviewed and revised the draft agreement and returned it to the owner's attorneys with an explanation of the significant revisions, specifically that BWS would indemnify and insure the owners for liabilities only up to when the conveyance of lot 3164 was consummated, not after. In July 11, 2024, their attorneys replied to us that while Hawaii MMGD accepted most of our revisions, the indemnification and insurance conditions were non-negotiable, and they provided us a revised letter agreement. On September 11, 2024, we asked the attorneys to explain why they required that indemnification both during construction and operation of the facility. And on the 13th, they replied back to us that there are situations where even after a conveyance is consummated, a previous owner of a conveyed property has potential liability exposure. Further, since the owner is essentially conveying lot 3164 to BWS for basically no monetary consideration, they were only willing to do so if we agreed to defend, indemnify, and insure them from liabilities even after conveyance of the lot was consummated. On October 2nd, we met internally and decided could not meet their indemnification insurance conditions and decided to pursue acquisition of lot 3164 by eminent domain. In November 10th, we contracted with the Benavente Group to determine the fair market value of lot 3164. And on December 13th, 2024, we sent a letter to the owner's attorneys indicating that their indemnification requirements were overly broad and uninsurable, that we had hired the Benavente Group to appraise lot 3164, and that upon completion of the appraisal, we would submit a written offer of compensation to the owners to acquire lot 3164. And that we also indicate that if the lot offer is not accepted, we would initiate the eminent domain proceedings to acquire the lot. On July 23rd, 2025, Benavente Group submitted its final report for lot 3164 and determined the fair market value to be $309,400. We sent this offer to the owners via their attorneys on September 30th and asked for a decision by October 15th. On October 10th, we heard back from the attorneys that the owner is amenable to selling lot 3164 to BWS, but they needed to evaluate the value of the lot and the impacts the acquisition would have on its holdings in the area, and to consider whether they should conduct their own appraisal. Okay, moving on to the resolution. If I can read the resolution number 006/2025, providing for acquisition of lot 3164 by eminent domain, situated at Honolulu, Ewa, Honolulu, Oahu, Hawaii, tax map key 9131, parcel 8. Be it resolved by the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu, that for public use and purposes to wit, provide access to and support the development, operation, and maintenance of a seawater desalination facility that is resilient to climate change, environmentally sustainable, and consistent with the ever development plan's directed growth policies. Proceedings in eminent domain as provided by the law be instituted for the acquisition of the subject real property described in the attached exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference. The acquisition of the foregoing real property by eminent domain is deemed necessary for the aforesaid public use and purposes. Two, that the Corporation Council of the City and County of Honolulu or such litigation counsel as the Board of Water Supply may employ pursuant to section 7-116 of the revised charter of the City and County of Honolulu, 1973, amended 2017 edition, shall be and is hereby authorized and empowered to institute and carry out said proceedings in the name and on behalf of the Board of Water Supply of the City and County of Honolulu. Corporation Council or such a litigation counsel shall be and is hereby further authorized and empowered to negotiate terms of any settlement subject to the approval of the Board of Water Supply and or the court before which such proceedings are commenced. And it has exhibit A is a description of lot 3164. As indicated there. I believe there's also a map attached as exhibit B. Sorry, the map's a little small because it was hard to fit the whole map in. But lot 3164 is basically 60 feet wide by about maybe 3,600 feet long. So it's a long, narrow lot. And the Olai Street is actually only about 10 to 12 feet wide, situated within roughly the center of that lot 3164. Okay, so can I go through presentation?
Members,
You're gonna hear a lot of the same stuff. but-
you must have questions.
I have a couple maybe.
Thanks.
Does the road serve anybody but our desal plant? Does it? Other people use it besides us? It will only be our use.
Mike, why don't you go to the slide with the map that shows the lot, the road?
So that's the road there highlighted in red.
Okay.
Our desalination facility is below it, is that first trapezoidal property.
We connect to it through some driveway on the end or something like that.
Sorry?
We connect to it through some.
Yeah, we'll bring our driveway down from the Olai Street down to the parcel. Yes, correct.
Right along the canal.
Right now, no one really uses that road because it doesn't go to anything. There's only a drainage canal at the far end. The refinery may use it to do security checks along the perimeter of their property. And
I'm sorry, where's the refinery relative to this?
it's you see where the label says lot 3164? It's covering
Oh,
yeah, it's above the line. Yeah, it's above.
The refinery doesn't use OLI to access their.
They use a portion of it to get to their propane gas tank loading dock, which is right around the beginning part of the road.
Just a short section of the road.
Is there any like future planning connecting Olai to Saratoga Street or any other street that we're?
Not that we're aware of.
Yeah, not that we're that, so on the other side of Saratoga Street, that's actually within HCDA's property for Kailua.
Yeah, but the drainage canal pretty much subdivides our parcel from the rest of the former.
And there is no existing bridge.
There's no bridge on that.
The only access point is Malakola Street, which is farther up.
Farther. And our plans are to widen and pave,
We're widening and paving Olai Street. We're also putting in a 16-inch transmission main for the desal plant, plus a 48-inch brine disposal line. And we're also putting in fire hydrants and also utilities along the road.
It will be designed to a city standard or state standard. And I guess my thinking is at some point, some distant future, if it connects to other roads and it becomes
I don't,
dedicatable to another agency.
yeah,
Is it
I don't,
designed in that way or no?
I don't think so, but Barry, can you explain this is gonna be an access service road for us and not
I
designed.
mean, at this point, it's exclusively for us. I'm just wondering if at some distant future it is not.
Yeah, that's right. We're adding drainage but in terms of like, thanks to the city roadway standards, I'll have to check on that. It'll be, the foundation would be stable enough for our uses.
I'm not sure if the width will meet the city standards. What is the width right now?
60.
16 feet?
There's a exit from the plan. That's the beginning of the road.
60 feet,
16.
16.
Yeah, 16 feet. Yeah.
That's narrow.
That's not fun. It's really narrow.
But it's a private lane now.
And it's a private-
So
Right now it's private, yeah, it's not.
So if it were to be converted in the future, it'd have to be.
it would have to be improved. To
And possibly more land acquired. How wide is the
The lot is
Triple line.
8 feet wide.
60 feet? So it would have to be really improved. But there may be enough space in the parcel to accommodate that. So, I would say that Mike and Barry have attempted to have discussions and maybe Jeff, you can speak to the indemnification
At this point,
that they're requesting.
right, I think it would be better if we discuss that in executive sessions if necessary. I don't want us to compromise any negotiations.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, the whole purpose of this action is out of an abundance of caution. We want to be ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
In the event that negotiations really do fall.
Fall through. And Chair, we have the ability with our agenda as worded if the need
Yeah.
arises to be able to go into executive session on any particular item.
Okay.
So if the board so desires, we
Would it
can.
be too specific if I ask all of the 309? Let's determine.
The 309 was determined by the Benavente Group. What they did was they, because it's such a long and narrow lot, trying to find a comparable sales lot is somewhat
In the
difficult.
area.
In the area, well, yeah, in the area, plus the fact that it's long and skinny. So what they did was they consolidated with the lot below it, which is the agriculture feed lot. And then they used that combined parcel to look for comparable sales, and they were able to find about 4 parcels that were able to use. They had to make some adjustments, yeah, for size and zoning and stuff. But so they did that, then they did one by just the feedlot by itself. And then what they did then was they compared the feedlot parcel appraisal versus the feedlot and Olay Street appraisal, and then they got them.
And the feedlot is owned city.
Feedlot is owned by the state of Hawaii.
The Board of Water, so the Board of Water is acting as its own agent, not going through DDC or the city.
We're acting as our own agent and this eminent domain proceeding. I think Corporation Council is willing to help initiate it. But because of their workload, we'd have to retain counsel to carry through the balance of the kind of eminent domain process.
For the revised charter, the Board of Water Supply is able to acquire property on the behalf of the city by various means, including eminent domain.
And you don't need to encumber funds or anything, just use the current budget.
We actually arranged to have funding available,
Okay,
Yeah, in our budget.
it's already,
the FY26 budget.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
you have a sense of, it would be better if you could just negotiate a salary, and if everybody would prefer that. So do you have a sense of like, at what point do you decide it's not worth waiting it?
If I could suggest maybe going into executive session for that kind of discussion. So as not to compromise the negotiation.
Yeah, probably. I think we should, if you don't mind.
Yep, no problem. So we're just gonna defer this into
Uh,
executive.
No,
Questions?
I think, and you can ask Jessica for a clarification, but because we can now pause going
We
to
can-
executive session and then come back out and move on in the,
We'll do it right now.
yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to move into executive
I'll
session?
make that motion.
It's been moved. It's been moved by Lance and seconded by Jean. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Jonathan Conachero,
I,
Member Brian Tayo. Board Member Lance Wilhelm,
Aye.
Board Member Gina Albano,
I,
and Chair Nalego Anthony.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion passes with 5.
Okay, please look for the record. We're gonna need 5 minutes to just try to remember.
Thank you.
Okay. Regarding item number 2, is there a motion to accept resolution number 1006/2025 that authorizes the proceeding of eminent domain by the manager for lot number 3164, tax map key 9-1-0310008?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Lance and seconded by John. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Jonathan Panashiro.
Aye.
Board Member Brian Ataya.
Aye.
Board Member Lance Wilhelm.
Aye.
Board Member Gina Vano.
Aye.
And Chair Nalego Anthony.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 5 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Please note for the record. We're moving to items for information.
Thanks, Mike.
Let me just check in with Board Secretary and make sure that we don't have any testimony for items 1 or 2.
Chair, there is no testimony.
Okay. And nothing on the record for item for information as well. Okay. Thank you. Michael, thank you for the time and expertise, and yeah, appreciate it. Moving on to item number 1, update on the Board of Water Supply's response to potential impacts of the Red Hill field contamination. Chair recognizes Joyce. Leonola, Joyce.
This is the October 2025 Red Hill update. Joyce with the manager. So on September 29th, Manager Lau attended the pledge to our pledge to our KK event at the commemorating the 10th year anniversary of signing of the Red Hill Administrative Order on Consent following the fuel release at the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. The event recognized our community's intergenerational commitment to do our part to ensure the healing and protection of our aquifer. And then Honolulu City Resolution 25-279, reaffirming the City Council's support for protection and preservation of clean water and public health, was approved on October 1st. The Board of Water Supply was in strong support of this measure, and we're grateful that the City Council's continued effort on this measure. And on the same date, the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee meeting was held at the State Capitol. As some of you may have recalled, I reported back in April that there was a vote to increase the frequency of FTAC meetings to 4 times a year. That was passed at that April meeting. However, we later was informed that there were some errors in the facilitation of the vote. And so in this latest meeting, a motion to increase the frequency was moved again. However, this time it did not pass. And also from the various presentations and updates provided by the regulator, the Environmental Protection Agency, and then also the State Department of Health, we were informed that EPA and DOH are still reviewing the Navy's request to reactivate the Navy IAEA Halaba shaft. Here are some of the latest findings presented by the UH on their study at the Red Hill using the tracer study. There were 2 confirmed diversions in the carbon filters used within the Navy's monitoring well network and quite a few false positives. We were informed that the funding of this tracer study ends at the end of this month, with a final report coming out shortly. At this time, we reserve any comments on this study until we have a chance to review that.
Joyce, if you could pause there, and just on this map, folks, this is from the University of Hawaii. Joyce, can you point out the Red Hill Monitor Well number 8, which is where they introduced the dye through an existing monitor well?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Can you point out Red Hill Monitor Well number 8? Yeah, that right where to the right, the double circle.
This double circle.
Yeah, I think that was, okay. So the yellow, that's that location with the concentric circles marked in yellow here is where they introduced the dye and flushed it with about 1,000 gallons of fresh water down an existing well bore. And then they have detected the dye at where the yellow teardrop shape locations are located, RHMW 15, I think, and RP
03.
03. So those are what they said was confirmed detections of dye. And what they initially thought would happen in only 2 to 3 weeks, it actually took more like 2.5 months or 3 months for the dye to travel from where the Red Hill Montour number 8 over to those other locations. But also to keep in mind, and there was a CRI meeting just recently. This map has oriented that the vertical axis, the vertical is the north arrow. It's kind of hidden by Neil's message there. Neil entered the waiting room. Underneath there's a north arrow pointing vertically up. So the west is to the left. So when I look at this map, it looks like Joyce says it flowing in kind of a westerly direction. Like some are flowing across Halava Valley. So I look forward to actually seeing the final report from the University of Hawaii. That'll come out sometime probably after October, later this year. They are challenged with funding right now. Their funding is coming from the Office of Naval Research, and they're kind of running out of money. So they're looking at, I think they may have found some money to continue the dye tracer step, but they don't have any funds to continue with the groundwater flow model development, which is a kind of a primary purpose of this research. But I just wanted to point that out on the orientation of the map and the where they're actually detecting it at this point in time, which seems to be kind of going in a westerly direction instead of a southerly direction. Joyce,
This came out of FAC. They reported on this?
Yes.
Did they report on the other methods that they were looking at in terms of how they were trying to track water movement?
The groundwaters.
The groundwater flow modeling and just all of the steps that they've been taking in the last several months in research?
Very briefly, I don't think they have a conclusion on that just yet.
And the FTAC is a public meeting, yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
but-
so this stuff is out in the public now. Okay,
yeah, this was actually shared just last week at the CRI meeting,
okay.
Friday.
Just as as another aside for this slide, you folks, you see all the green dots with the stars inside. Apparently, the contractors who did this work did it very haphazardly, and so they got dye all over the trucks, all over the equipment, all over their hands, all over their pants. And so when they went to go and check the dye locations at other locations, they were getting positives everywhere, but they couldn't figure out why. And so like I want to just with a grain of salt here, the data, we're really anxious to see the data here because they got positives all over the region. But when they went and checked the dye was all over the trucks, all over their pants, all over their hands. And so it just like, I don't think it was as scientifically clean as you would want other kinds of tests at this interval and regularity to be as pristine as possible. So anyway, there was a long, I think, discussion about that as well, that hopefully the data matches up to that. Because if you look at it, the stuff that they're saying false positive is actually up into Halava, which is unnerving if that were the case.
Sorry, Joyce. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay. Slide. So the day after the FTAC, the regulators, EPA and DOH provide an update to the House of Representatives Special Committee on Red Hill. And from this information brief, we know that the regulators are meeting with the Navy weekly to go over any outstanding issues. We also found out that the DOH approved and signed off on the Navy's construction plans for the permanent treatment facility for Red Hill Shaft this past August, September. We have not seen the plan, so we don't know what this new treatment looks like. But yeah,
Do you know if those plans will come into the public domain?
we are not
We're
sure.
not sure.
Okay,
I think probably not.
yeah, I mean, the question of the build cost is really interesting to me, considering they're in it $500 million already. And I mean, these are all important things to contemplate.
I'll keep monitoring their
Okay.
website.
Thank you.
Like you, Chair, you pointed out, from what little we know, it seems like the cost of the treatment system at Red Hill Shaft might be $500 million.
Okay.
And then, as a result of the shutdown of the federal government, there has not been a lot of updates on the Navy's Closure Task Force website since September 30th. However, during the FTAC meeting, Rear Admiral Mark William did share with us that the discrepancy in number reporting is actually a result of them trying to separate the fuel recovery into separate dashboards. So you see on the left is the tank cleaning, how much they recovered from the tanks itself. And then on the right side is the amount of fuel they've recovered since cleaning the pipelines itself. That's kind of clears up the confusion that we
Got it.
had last meeting.
Thank you for flagging that at the last meeting.
And then, well, we just hope that in the coming weeks, we have more clarity on Red Hill events because of the current state of our government. I am available for any questions.
Members, any questions?
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item for information number 2, 2025 Customer Satisfaction Survey. Chair recognizes Becky Ward from Ward Research. Aloha, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming in person. We appreciate all the help with this, and I will turn it over to you.
Terrific. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my 6th appearance in 10 years, which is how long the study's been going, which is terrific. Let's go to the next slide. Let's jump into the methodology. We're tracking measures of satisfaction and key perceptions. The study started in 2015. It's been conducted every 2 years. In 2021, we did make a change in the methodology. We went from phone only to phone plus online, which really reflects the reality of polling. So we did make a change. Telephone surveys, 300, online surveys, 400, and this was fielded predominantly in August of this year. 700 interviews total, so the maximum sampling area is plus or minus 3.7, which you know is well within industry standards. We do weight the data by age and by ethnicity to make sure it matches the profile of Oahu residents. And due to that change that I talked about, moving to phone plus online, we are treating 2021 as the new baseline. Because of the change in methodology, there were some subtle changes in the way that people answered questions. And so we're treating 2021 as the baseline, and we now have 3 measures in this new tracking series. So this is a 7-point scale that we use throughout. 7 is strongly satisfied, 1 is strongly dissatisfied, and then we aggregate. 6 or 7 rating is strong satisfaction, 5 is moderate, 4 is low, and then the 1 to 3s are dissatisfied. We're also showing the don't knows because they do figure into some of these calculations. I'm also showing the mean rating over on the right, and I'm going to direct your attention to the mean ratings more often because those percentages can be impacted by the percentage of people who say they don't know. So, first question, we always start with overall satisfaction with the board. You see the mean ratings come in right under a 6 on a 7-point scale. We've got 50 to 60% strongly satisfied, another 20 to 28% somewhat moderately satisfied, and the dissatisfaction is negligible. It's really 3, 4, 8% on the far right. So if we look, bill payers line up pretty similarly with the total. Non-bill payers are just a little bit different, but that's because they have less of a relationship with you and less less to judge. So we do see throughout the data that non-bill payers often are responding that they don't know. And that's why I'm wanting us to refer to the means that are on the right. So the mission for dependable, safe water, and then keeping water rates affordable. You do see that there has been a decline in satisfaction with dependable and safe. We flagged the decline in perceptions of safe water in 2023. And I would remind you that 2021, we were in the field just before information about the Red Hill fuel leaks became public. So that change in 2023 clearly reflects concerns about Red Hill. So we just see declines there relative to keeping water rates affordable. Really not much change in the mean ratings. But you see there is a big difference between satisfaction with the affordability and with dependable and safe water, much less satisfaction relative to affordability. I think we should also just consider the findings in this study related to the cost in current day environment. With economic conditions as they are, affordability may be defined very differently than it has been in the past. So let's go on to the next, which takes us into customer service. Again, if we look at the mean ratings on the right, satisfaction comes in just below the 6 on a 7-point scale. And really the changes over time are not statistically significant. So satisfaction with customer service is staying in that same range. We're showing it for bill payers because they are more likely than non-bill payers to call, of course, or interact with you. And bill payers are showing that same, a little bit of trending down on the percentages, but if we look at the mean ratings, they're all in the same range and not statistically significant in their differences. So then we delve a little further into customer service. First on the left, in the past 6 months, have you called the board to discuss or issue? 10% said yes, they had, and that's pretty consistent over time. In the middle, how satisfied were you with how the communication was handled? There's some variability there over time. It's showing at a 5.17 at this point. It has been higher in 2001 and 2023, it was lower, the mean rating. And I'm assuming that's due to problems during the pandemic and bill payment. And over on the right, so why did you rate your satisfaction the way you did? The most common reason is that the problem was resolved, question was answered. The people were professional or nice, fast response. And then at 24% of the 10% said that the problem was not resolved or they had a long wait time. And you can see the other reasons there. So employees. First thing to notice, there's a whole lot of don't knows. That's the gray portion on the far right. If people don't come into contact with employees, they hesitate to express a level of satisfaction. The mean ratings are all very comparable. There are some differences in the percentages of strong satisfaction, but that's due to those don't knows. So from a mean rating standpoint, again, the ratings are just below a 6 on a 7-point scale for overall professionalism. Courtesy, we see a little bit of a drop, but not a lot, not enough to be significant. Efficiency, they're all in about the same range over time. And again, these are all perceptions, whether they have encountered an employee or not. And on the following slide, there's a continuation. The accessibility of employees, those ratings are very stable. following through with what they say. All of these coming in just under 6 on the mean rating scale. Accuracy, that has trended down in mean ratings. My guess is that that's due to concerns about economic conditions and wondering if their bills are accurate. Probably hoping their bills are not accurate, but that's my guess. So now we get into the quality of water. How satisfied are you with first your water pressure, then the quality of water, and then the taste? So water pressure, there's some variation there, but we've got what, 65%? Yep, 65% strongly satisfied, another 16% moderately satisfied. The quality of the water has shown a downward trend since what we first saw in 2021 before the public announcement of the Red Hill fuel leaks. So that has trended downward, as has safe water that we saw earlier. The taste of your water has trended downward from 67% strong satisfaction in 2021 down to 56% currently. So there are some changes in perception there. Over on the right, we're looking at satisfaction with the job that you do protecting, managing, sustaining water resources. That's been up and down. It did take a hit again from 2021 to 23. I'm assuming that's due to Red Hill. It's back up in 2025, the mean rating back up to 5.52, but it did clearly take a dip in 2023. So the delivery of water service. Providing water, reliable service, response to trouble calls. The top two you see are over the 6-point threshold. So providing water to customers, very positive. And it has trended down some, but it's trended from a high of 6.36 and 84% strong satisfaction. So it started at a very high level. Reliable service comes in just a little below that, but still exceeding the 6 high water mark, if you will, on the mean ratings. Fast response to trouble calls, those percentages are lower because a lot of people couldn't judge. So if we look at the mean ratings, they're actually trending up. Fast response to trouble calls. And that would be perception as well as firsthand experience. Let's go on to the next slide. You did, thank you. How satisfied are you with the job that the board's doing in repairing, maintaining, and replacing? Not much change here. Certainly none that's statistically significant if we look at the mean ratings. When we saw the decline from 21 to 23, it's partially because the don't knows increased, but so did the moderate satisfaction. So we did see some blip in 2023, but it's recovered pretty close to where it was in 21. On the next slide, fairness of water rates. How would you rate your satisfaction in terms of fairness? This is lower than what we were just seeing. And again, when we talk about water rates, we do see less satisfaction here, as one would expect, especially with today's economic conditions. But it's trended down on a total basis, total sample. And bill payers, who are the ones who should know more about water rates, that has trended down, and that change this year is statistically significant. So there is an erosion in the perception of the fairness. Now, is that fairness between groups and between different rate schedules? Is it fairness to me as a consumer or a customer? That we don't know, but I would guess the latter really figures into it, which gets us back to affordability. How affordable would you say your water service is? So on a total basis, there's been very little change. You'd like to see this higher. This is probably the low water mark in the satisfaction measures, but there's been very little change over time. And with bill payers, there's been some erosion from 2021, but not significantly so. Okay, on to the next. So about the bill, perceptions of accuracy. These are bill payers only. And we see that there has been some erosion here. We saw it with perceptions of accuracy earlier in the presentation. Not a serious erosion, but it's a downward trend that I think you don't want to see continue. Water conservation, how would you rate the board's efforts in terms of informing residents how to conserve water and keep bills lower? So you see that this has been up and down, but at this point, it's at the high mark over the past 3 years. My guess is that there's less strong satisfaction here because of how to keep their bills lower. If customers don't feel like their bills are low, then perhaps they don't think there's enough being done to tell them how to keep them low. But this is a message that you want to continue to get out there. And we will look at other conservation measures. So in the past year or two, have you made any changes in your daily routines to conserve water? Over half, 51% told us yes. That's down from 2023, but I would suggest that it's over the past 2 years, and we may see this continue on a downward measure because people made changes 3 years ago. If they made changes in response to the Red Hill crisis, those people wouldn't be in the yes currently. So what kinds of changes have you made? They always go to showers first, shorter showers. Ernie tells me you don't want them to take fewer showers, just shorter showers.
Yeah.
They're talking about some efficiency measures, washing dishes more efficiently, and then being more mindful or being more aware, which is one of your key messages, of course. And then some measures related to watering the yard less at a better time of day, and you can see the others. But they always go to showers first. This one gets me every time. The question is, who has the greatest responsibility in water conservation? Same 7-point scale relative to responsibility. Our respondents tell us that you, the Board of Water Supply, have more responsibility than we do as residents. This always disappoints me. So 82% great responsibility for the board. Government has 75% great responsibility. Oahu's residents, 69%, I believe, and the same for Oahu's businesses. It's interesting because often you'll hear residents talk about the fact that businesses should be doing more. So we quite often point our fingers everywhere else other than at ourselves. If someone asked you what are some of the ways that you could conserve water, what would you tell them? First is shorter showers, fewer showers, be more mindful, be more aware, fix leaks, new spigots, then watering at a better time of day, and you can see the rest of the mentions. This is awareness of your programs. Have you ever seen, read, or heard of Detect a Leak, which is trending downward? It's the dark bar on the right, that's 2025. But Water Smart and Water Sensible is trending upward. Building awareness of those programs. Awareness of your programs and activities in these different areas. So the most frequent mention is still information about Red Hill. That's the second mention there, but it is down from the dominant 83% that we saw in 2023. Water conservation is the second program mentioned the most frequently, 59%. Repair and maintenance of the system, watershed protection, water recycling, education programs, and then we added a new activity in 2025, development or exploration of new water sources. Collecting baseline information on this, hoping to see this grow over time. So how do you prefer to get information about the board's programs and services? At the top this year is email, followed by mail. And then you see there's a number of mentions with significant changes. TV is down. Social media is down over what we saw in 2023. And I'm going to come back to this because we've got some other measures about the perceived trustworthiness of social media information. Then the bill insert, the other mentions over on the right. So there are some real differences in age. Last year, we saw social media sitting atop the mentions for the youngest age group, 18 to 34. This year, it's been replaced by email. So email is the most frequent mention in everyone under 55. Social media comes in second mention, and then you can see how the others fall out. 55 plus, that would be me and some of us in this room. TV, mail, and then email. We don't see social media on the list of the 55 plus group. On the next, we ask about specific digital sites. So if you get information from social media, and 18% said yes, they do. Where are you getting that? What are your sources? Instagram, Facebook at the top, both more than 50% mention among those who say they use social media for information about the board. Then there's YouTube, TikTok, and it goes down from there. Reddit, Twitter, we added podcasts. Other mentions and don't know. So Instagram and Facebook sitting atop the mentions. In the past 6 months, do you remember seeing or hearing any messages or news stories? This is down from 2023, which we assume was driven by Red Hill at the time. A third said yes, they had heard messages, seen or heard. Red Hill still tops the list, but it is down dramatically over what was mentioned in 23. Next is water conservation, which is good to see that up in second place. Water breaks, excuse me, contaminants in water. Oh, Ernie's right there at that access point, but mentions of Ernie went from 8 down to 1. He's quite happy with that.
Not as popular now.
And then you see down at the bottom, 37% said they didn't know. It's higher than it was in the past, but that's really not unusual. People thinking, I know I've seen or heard something, but I don't know what it was. This is sources of information that they trust to provide accurate, honest information about freshwater issues. And I recall talking to you in 2021 when we had collected data prior to Red Hill and said the really good news was that the board and scientists sit at the top of the rankings relative to providing accurate, honest information. So you are still highly trusted. Mean ratings there on the right-hand side, falling just below 6 for the board and for scientists. And you see that the range is between 60 and 70% strong trust, which is really good. You don't see trust like this very often. University of Hawaii is a little lower. State Department of Health, you see they took a hit from 21 to 23. But the mean ratings kind of made up for that. Mean ratings, they bounced up in 2023. Nonprofits have taken a hit. I'm not sure why that is. But the good news continues to be that you are among the most trusted sources on freshwater issues. Then on the next slide, we took a look at social media versus traditional media. So this is a new question this year. Traditional media, news outlets, strongly trusted by significantly more than trust social media. We assume that's due to misinformation, disinformation. Over on the right, the distrust is the pink section of the bar. It's very unusual to see on the low end of this 38% distrust of social media. So traditional media is still valued more than social media on freshwater issues. So conclusions, recall or messages recalled about Red Hill, they've dropped significantly since the last wave. And conservation messages are coming in in the second place. Satisfaction levels remained relatively unchanged. Dependable water, safe water. We saw some slippage in perceptions of equality, but not enough to be statistically significant. And although residents believe that everyone holds great responsibility, they place more responsibility on you than they do on themselves, other entities. They're still indicating that they equally trust the board and scientists to provide honest, accurate information. By the way, we did take business and elected officials off of that list that we measured because they always brought in the bottom of the list in trust. So we took them off and asked about the 2 media sources instead. Once it gets to rates, levels are holding fairly steady, but they are holding steady fairly low relative to satisfaction with your ability to keep rates affordable, fairness, accuracy of the bill, and perceptions of affordability. And on the next slide, relative to your mission, those perceptions held steady, protecting, managing, sustaining resources, as well as repairing the system. The water conservation messages were still mentioned quite frequently, although there was a decline in those who said they had made changes in the last year or two. Lastly, there has been a change in their preferred means of communication from the board, with email now topping the list and social media taking a second. No, taking a third or fourth. I am happy to entertain questions, comments.
Members, any questions?
Very comprehensive, thank you.
Maybe just oh, there's Kathleen. I'm curious your thoughts about how email has jumped back up.
One of my guesses is that it's due to other utilities using email to notify customers about power shutoffs or things like that. I think that Some other utilities are using email fairly effectively. And I think the other factor is the distrust of social media. Kathleen, you see? Okay.
How many people do we have on our email list?
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
don't, to be honest with you, because of certain issues dealing with opt-in and opt-out in our customer base.
Okay.
We haven't, we're working towards it, but we haven't really fleshed that out yet. So basically, our primary communication is on bill insert
Yeah.
and then the social media, which does very well.
Yeah, just to let you know too, board, we are working on a mobile app on your smartphone.
Yeah.
So that hopefully will come out within the near future. And that'll be another way for people to receive
I
information.
think that's really then when we will really start moving forward with an email, because we'll have that whole opt-in thing and notifications.
Okay. I was surprised to see some of the big shifts this year.
In what area? No.
It's like when you flagged the social media jump,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the TV jump, it's just, it looks like there's I don't know if it's are the people who are responding or something too, but it's huge shift.
I do think, I think, the news this year, things are a lot different than they used to be, what's discussed in the news.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's contributing to it as well.
Okay.
So people are going to more traditional sources.
In a global sense, just like where they're turning to get all the information. Yeah. The AI stuff is scary.
Absolutely, and that's probably reflected in social media distrust.
Well, we thank you for your commitment to this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky, and please take the question about me off the.
That number can go below one.
Yeah.
Just what people remember.
Yeah, that's when we know we're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 3, status update of groundwater levels at all index stations. Chair recognizes Barry. So, Barry, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Yeah, we have 9 aquifer index stations in low groundwater this for the month of September. Yeah, this is the hottest month is August, and September is between July and September are the hottest months. So we have Beretania, Kalihi, Wanalua, Pro City, Waipahu, Kalunui, and Wailua in caution. Some of them are just tipping in there. Some of them are more so. Honolulu is an alert. And the Kaimuki is back in critical status. The chlorides at Kaimuki are still steady, about 100. It's more draft sensitive than chloride. Honolulu, we cut back with there and it still is dropping. So it just ties into the lack of rain that we had. The pumpage for September is 153 million gallons per day, slightly less than August. The rainfall index, so it's for September is 36% of normal. The 5-month moving average is 70%. The drought monitor, which we'll show later, abnormally dry, is grading towards the recycle to be drier. But not as bad as like Big Island. The National Weather Service is forecasting above normal precipitation beginning in November to February. They moved it back. It was supposed to be October, and they moved it back to November. Most monitoring wells are exhibiting decreasing head levels still because it's still, that's still the summer demand. Lower rainfall and increased production. And then the September 25 is higher than the same time last year, and the 5-year monthly average was just pretty steady throughout this whole year. It's been above it. So there it is. Low rainfall the last 2 months. You can see the blue is entirely above pump in the production that we saw in 2024 and in the 5-year monthly average. So 153. So we get into like the 9 index wells.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about the water shortage plan and the low groundwater plan. So when we kind of combine the low groundwater plan into the water shortage plan. It ties into the amount of pumps that are available to meet that demand. And conservation has helped bring that down. But the low groundwater plan is if you have 3 index wells in low groundwater condition, right now we have 2, one in alert, one in critical. But if you have 3, then we could recommend to the board to declare a low groundwater condition. And what that does is it sends a signal to our customers. We've asked, I think folks have asked for a 20% reduction during this summer because of the lower rain. Once we declare it's a voluntary conservation, and it can progressively get more strict. So this is just a general voluntary conservation. You know, if it starts to get worse, then we can ramp it up to, as you know, aesthetic uses of water should be curtailed. Like in Maui, they're in stage 2 on West Maui, where we can only irrigate once a week, and depending on whether your address is odd or even, they give you a day to do that in commercial and stuff. So that's another way of ramping it up. Certainly there's mandatory, which calls for a lot of, there's a lot of administrative work to do that, but that's possible. And then it gets even higher than that. We can set allotments, and those that don't follow that allotment can get charged a higher rate, up to 20 times the water rate. So that's what's in the low groundwater plan. It's brought into the water shortage plan because it ties into the amount of pumps that we have available. So low groundwater, when it gets, you know, we don't want to over pump and break the lens and lose the source.
Right.
And so we turn off. When we turn off, people need to cut their demand because they're going to run out. But there's other ways where if you have contamination, for instance, where we have to shut off Halavashab and we have to pick up the demand in other areas. That's another reason for some of the low groundwater in other aquifers or joining aquifers, because we're picking that demand up. But pumps could go out. You could have a major, I don't want to jinx it, but infrastructure failures could cause a water shortage situation. And then that would kick in all of those progressive water conservation measures that I talked about. The water shortage plan is on our website. It's something that you folks had adopted a couple of years ago. And it remains our reference and a sort of an emergency response plan to water shortage. So those are all in place, but I thought I needed to give you the larger idea.
When we get to the place where we're gonna have to ramp up the measures, we'll come back to the board and be sure to alert the board and get your input before we actually start to implement.
But you don't need board action. You can pull the lever on it. You just want to keep everybody informed.
Yeah, but we want the board to be with us on this because when we get into the more stricter requirements, that may affect your issuance of meters and systems.
I think we're ramping into the wetter season, so for you know, it's a little bit past us. But yeah, it's I've seen it where we pumped. We were 153. The highest I've seen a monthly pumpage was 180 back in 2003. That was a 6-year drought. Our aquifers are thinner now back then, so it's a little different. But just relative to give you the feel of how bad it could get, I've seen it worse. If we're heading into summer with these numbers, it would be different. We're kind of past that going. Let's just hope that the National Weather Service is correct, and then we get some rains next month. It should ease the situation.
I'm curious. What are you, Paul?
Yeah.
Any questions, members? I'm curious, does this come up in any kind of energetic conversation at like the conference last week about just like how the different islands are dealing with some of these drought conditions and what some of the forecasting is looking like?
It's one thing I forgot to put on the program,
Of,
but we do, like, I know you meet with your managers, I meet with my counterparts, quarterly. And that's how we know how Maui is, you know, Kona is also an area where it is susceptible to drought. So we share information, share tactics, situations and the federal, oh, sorry, go ahead.
there was a little bit on the managers panel, which is the
Oh, yeah.
very last,
Yeah,
item.
good question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess like, you know, it's on the front page today, right? Maui going into stage 2.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm reading the paper and I'm thinking like, oh, you know, thankfully this isn't us. But at the same time, it's, you know, 2 islands over and you know, that we are subject to the same, you know, or similar net conditions that are appearing. I mean, we all have different water uses, but certainly, you know, general weather conditions and trade wind days and the like are going to be similar in Australia.
Latitude kind of.
Right. In some spot in the tropics.
Maui's, some of their sources are surface water, so they're more susceptible to low rainfall.
Right.
Like, treatment plant at one point didn't have water. They couldn't, the stream flow is that low. We're 100% groundwater, there's more storage. We worried about head levels and chloride. Theirs is like, you get water or not, And so, yeah, it's slightly different from that standpoint, but it's dry on both sides, right? All the leeward side.
Right, all the west sides are, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I bring it up is just because like on Maui, right, the PGA
Right.
says, okay, well, we're not gonna come, like that, the grass is not green enough.
Huge economic loss.
Yeah, huge economic loss. And well, and it's also like, right, what you're talking about is, theoretical. I mean, right, you got 9 of these in low groundwater, and you're talking about a theoretical shift in people's patterns into the future.
Mhm.
But on Maui, they're like, oh, no more water. You cannot water this golf course, and now, okay, PJ not gonna come, okay, there's huge economic loss, right, lawsuits and the like, and I just like, I'm wondering, what do we have to gain and to learn from here before that happens here, from what other islands are experiencing, and whether or not we can internalize some of that to make sure that we can see a little bit further around the corner.
Mhm.
And we have more control, right, at what 75% of the water is privately held,
Yeah.
pervaded in ditches. It's like a completely different system. But you can run out of water, you can run out of water, and then we're in a place where we have to make hard decisions on tier point meters or,
I think we shouldn't take it for granted that we're 100% groundwater. We're just very fortunate right now. Surface water has got less storage capacity, really sensitive to rainfall on the short term. But we can't take it for granted because, contamination events can cause us to shut down wells. Right now, we're dealing with the emerging contaminants such as PFAS. It's going to require us to invest in treatment systems over the next few years that it's going to be reflected in our budgets. Let's not take it for granted. Diversification of our resource base is one important strategy, and water conservation. We need people to be more aggressive in that area because that's leaving the resource where we can have it stored underground. We don't have to pump it out, and it can be there to tide us over when we come into that multi-year drought. And Barry experienced that. I also experienced it back in the 80s. It's not a pleasant time.
So 9 wells in low groundwater. Best case, we get some rain. Worst case, what happens next?
So we continue to monitor, we ramp up, the frequency of monitoring, messaging, Yes. The new sources that, the manager had directed us to do, which I totally agree. It's taking time. It's not something that can be done fast. I think we're extending it from 7 years to a decade, Ernie, because
Yeah, the
The
permitting
permitting.
process is looking like a,
we're moving on those fronts. I know Ernie has met with ENV because they raised their sewer rates and then to a conservation type of rate structure where they paying more of their sewer bill based on the amount of water they use. Greater percentage.
Right.
And then there's benefits with stormwater capture and stuff. So increasing those incentives, and then, working as like through several agencies kind of on the same. So those are discussions that are occurring now. That's going to show itself when we start to go live with that. But increasing our rebate amount is one of the things we're doing. Yeah, it's when in Maui, the county council chair reached out to us. We started with them about conservation measures. One of the things, because you have surface water, like the ditch, the ditches are leaking and they usually get like 40-50% on account of water. Ours is rising at 15. We are part of the master plan is to try to reduce that down. How can we, we don't have a good handle on this. So we calibrating our source meters. We know that we changed out all the revenue meters. Where are those areas that we can reduce our water loss? But if you pipe the dish, you only take what you need, leave the rest in the stream. There's all kinds of benefits with that. So it's managing water more carefully, an educated public. I'd like to see some other conservation survey questions higher, not as high, but it's not on the bottom. So people are aware, and it is everyone's responsibility. Maybe it's our responsibility to inform them and educate them, but they're the ones using the water. And our conservation rebates give them the tools to use less water and save their bill.
Right.
And preserve the resource. So tying that all together with the alternative water sources, let's not forget watershed management. And that ties into fire management. They all kind of tie together in this whole one water picture that we're working on. There's a lot of strategies. A lot of them are more long-term.
yeah, one of the areas with all the anticipated growth that's going to occur, transit-oriented development, push for affordable housing, redevelopment of Loa Stadium, the property there. I think the low-hanging fruit there is to look at on-site reuse. To actually try now as before all the buildings start coming up with that in mind already from the get-go, to start to look at on-site reuse, building by building or clustering buildings together to create a source of non-potable water for non-potable uses on that property. And there's a developer that has had the courage to push forward on her own, and just want to acknowledge them for their two developments to look at. They made the choice to actually spend more money up front to develop a system that'll conserve water resources. And I think there's more opportunities, but it's going to be a kind of a balance of the carrot and stick approach here, I think, where we try to increase the incentives, make it more attractive for them to make those decisions, but also have some measure of discipline to maybe regulations in the future. At the state level, there's regulations that require non-potable water use, reuse
For government facilities,
for state and county buildings.
2045, yeah. But we're implementing that for the desal plant, or ENB's doing that, DFM's doing that with Honolulu. And then the stadiums on government.
We want NASA to look at that seriously for that Aloha Stadium.
Right.
I don't know if I answered your question on what to do if it continues. One thing I forgot to say is that if pumpage doesn't go down, we all we monitor chlorides. Our labs do that monthly.
Yeah.
My last, our chlorides are in good shape. We don't have anything going like, spiking to like 200, they're actually stable. We're lucky, I think. If we have dry years that are back to back to back,
No.
and we hit it hard the whole time, we don't let it rest, then they start to rise. We can handle a couple more months of this, I think, based on the chlorides. So we just keep,
Head level of that.
yeah. So you can still pump, but the chlorides go up a little bit. And we monitor that. So that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, well, thank you, Barry, for,
Thanks for the questions.
yeah, keeping this careful balance as we find our way. Last question. Last time you had said that we were at 153 average and like peaking 160. Are we still peaking 160?
On a daily?
On a
On a
daily?
daily?
Yeah.
I didn't check recently, but I would imagine so.
I think on a weekly, we are probably very close to 160.
Yeah.
On a monthly basis.
It goes up and down the drain and temperatures it's getting a little cooler. The days are getting a little shorter.
Okay.
So
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I would take a 15-minute break right now, but Daniel been waiting patiently for 2 hours, so. So we go on to item number 4. Water main report for September 2025. That recognizes Daniel Lee. Hello, Daniel. Welcome back.
Good afternoon, board chair members. Daniel Lee, acting assistant program administrator for field operations. I have the water main leak detection reports for the month of September. We have 30 main breaks, 11 were leaks, 17 were breaks, and there are 2 damages. For the leak detection report, we had 64 points of interest, found 63 leaks. 6 were main leaks, 38 were meter coupling leaks, 14 leaks on the customer side. There are 5 service leaks. Are there any questions?
Members.
Yeah, I just want to thank Daniel and the whole field operations team. This past week has been a rough week. 20-inch main break. I'll show up next month's report on Dole Street. That shut down Dole Street for a few days, and that was a pretty bad thing.
We had 7 leaks in 3 days. 7
Yeah,
breaks.
main breaks all over the place.
Yeah, I've been watching the news reports. The thing just keep pinging. So, yeah.
Do sign up for H&L Alert to get alerts about main breaks and.
Put it on the app that you're working on.
Put it on that. I mean, this is just like, this isn't a complaint. This is just an observation that, we have a duty to keep up with the infrastructure. We're just gonna see more of this stuff, right? The stuff that we know is problematic. We gotta figure out how to keep moving and keep changing. But we do want to thank you guys for the long days when the big mains break. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to the end of our regular meeting. And we do have a few items in executive session. So is there a motion to adjourn into executive session with probably 10 minutes to turn the room around, as well as the virtual space?
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna take Jean and John. It's been moved and seconded. Jean moved it, John seconded it. And all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. We are moving into executive session. Okay, folks, we have 2 things to vote on in open session. The first is the approval of the minutes for executive session held May 27th, 2025. Just as a reminder, those who were present that day were myself, Jonathan, Brian, and Lance. Jean, you were excused and absent that day. So if there's no discussion, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Lance and seconded by John. Go ahead and roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Jonathan Conchero.
Aye.
Board Member Brian Encino.
Aye.
Board Member Lance Wallhead.
Aye.
Board Member Gina Bono.
Abstain?
And Chair Naleng.
Aye.
Chair, motion passes with 4 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Please note for the record, number two, the motion is to authorize the settlement as proposed by outside counsel for item number one, CCV 19-1-01192, Marjorie Jean Kawahara v. City and County of Honolulu Board of Water Supply, in an authorization to settle. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Jean and seconded by John. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Board member, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Jonathan Panachiro.
Aye.
Board member Brian Daya,
Aye.
Board member Lance Goldman,
Aye.
Board member Gina Pano,
Aye.
and Chair Nalego Anthony.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Please note for the record. And on my list, that's all I have for today. If there's no other business, any other discussion, any other amendments, anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you. It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.